I'll get my teeth organised this morning as well.
Yeah, that just seemed like absolutely natural because Eric Clapton so disgraced himself. And he's never really properly apologised either for coming on stage and saying he supported Enoch Powell and that all these, he used a very racist term to describe people with a different skin colour. Many of whom were in the audience at the Birmingham Odeon that night when he played and said those things. But many of us were profoundly shocked at the time because Eric Clapton had made his name playing the blues, which is an entirely black-based music, and then moved on to reggae with I Shot the Sheriff. Again, a black music that he, as a white man, was exploiting and making a pile of cash from. So there was a letter written to the NME that said, "Who shot the sheriff, Eric? It sure as hell wasn't you." Rock Against Racism, and it had an address. So I wrote in and said, "Can I be part of this, please?" So it seemed natural to us that if you liked your music, then you would also like the people that made it and who originated it. And all of rock and roll really stemmed from black music originally.
It did indeed, yeah. I mean, it's a laughable thing. He's got a place out in Antigua, which is a drug clinic, which is, well, let's face it, Antigua's full of, it's mostly black people over there. It seems very never mind.
Anyway, it was a natural thing, and it's one of the things I'm proudest of. Is that TRB back in the 70s did firmly nail its colours to the mast, and we did put Rock Against Racism's address on the back of our album sleeve and things like that to try and spread the word. Because in those pre-internet days, music and album sleeves and newsletters to fans was one of the ways that you could actually spread information about campaigns and ways of changing the world.
Yeah, and then you were a vocal supporter of LGBT.
Well, yes, we didn't call it that then. We called it gay. Because gay in the 70s, as in the Gay Liberation Front or Gay News or Gay Switchboard or whatever, meant everything non-heterosexual. So you didn't need to specify bisexual, transgender or lesbian or whatever. Gay was a catch-all term. So, yes, I was openly vocal about... I mean, the thing was, I mentioned I'd had a breakdown at 16. That had been basically because I'd fallen in love with another boy at school at a time when you went to prison for 4 years if you were gay. So there wasn't any kind of role models, helplines, or anything to tell me that I could have a happy life. And so once I got into my 20s and heard David Bowie, and that music was a liberation for me, for finally to hear some music about my own life rather than about somebody else's life. I just said to myself, if I ever get a chance to do that for somebody else in the next generation, then I'll do it. Yeah. And so Glad to Be Gay coming out as a single, really, well, on an EP, was really kind of an important part of keeping that promise.
Yeah, there was that, and then there was Up Against the Wall, which I remember really well. I was at college when this was all coming out, and it was it was much talked about, but for a good thing.
Well, hopefully so. Anyway, thing is, it came back to bite me really in my mid-30s because, as I say, gay included bisexual there in the kind of catch-all terminology, and I discovered late-onset bisexuality at age 34, 35, and fell in love with a woman.
Yeah, and obviously you got children as well now, so...
Yeah, so I mean, that was hugely inconvenient, being known as the man who had sung Glad to Be Gay. But at the same time, that what we were always fighting for was for people's right to love whoever they wanted to, and I still stand by that.
In the world, I don't believe one of these stories I've heard about them raiding our boats for no reason at all, lining the customers up by the wall, picking out people, knocking them down, resisting happens here. Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Hey, sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Pictures of naked young women are fun. In tidbits and Playboy, page 3 of the Sun. There's no nudes in Gay News or One magazine, but they still find excuses to call it obscene. Read how disgusting we are in the press, in the Telegraph, People and Sunday Express. Molesters of children, corrupters of youth. It's there in the paper, it must be the truth. Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Hey, sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. And sit back and watch as they close down our clubs, arrest us for meeting and raid all our pubs. Make sure your boyfriend's at least 21, so only your friends and your brothers get done. Lie to your workmates, lie to your folks. Put down the Queens and tell anti-queer jokes. Gay lives ridiculous, join their laughter. The buggers are legal now, what more are they after? Sing if you're glad to be gay.
Woke up and the toilet was overflowing. Must call the plumber. Realised the kids needed swimming lessons as it's all got out of control. Luckily the old windows gave out, so we all floated outside. Must get on to the glazers. And now the garden looks atrocious. Now what was the number for that landscaper?
Because you never know when a potential customer needs you, get yourself listed in your local flyer, the local business directory. Your local flyer, bringing businesses to your fingertips.
You're listening to the Sticks Radio Show here on Seclo Sounds. And that was Glad to be Gay for my guest today, none other than Tom Robinson. Let's rejoin Tom. You've also, I mean, people probably, I don't know if people do know this, you wrote some songs with Elton John on his album 21 at 33.
Yep, and The Fox, there's on there as well. And I did some songs with Dan Hartman, some with Peter Gabriel, some with Manu Katché. So over the years, it's been a blessing to be able to write.
One of my, I've got, actually, I'm looking through, I've got two of my favourite songs are your singles, actually, which are both War Baby and Atmospherics. Listen to the radio. I remember listening to those in the early 80s or middle 80s, and they were great songs. And this one, actually, the new single, reminds me a little bit of Atmospherics. There's a sort of the same sort of undercurrent.
Yeah, Atmospherics was one of the ones I wrote with Peter Gabriel. He was a kind of a big influence at that time because he's always trying to innovate and do something different from what went before.
I mean, the Sledgehammer video is amazing, isn't it, still? And even now you watch it. You sort of champion new bands or trying to break new bands. What advice would you offer to somebody who is a singer looking for their, should we say, their big break or to get into the business? What sort of advice would you offer them?
I would advise them to write rubbish songs.
Okay.
That is the really most important thing that I've learned, is if you sit down trying to write a hit,
oh yeah,
unless you're Egg White or Cathy Dennis or one of those ridiculously talented writers, chances are you won't be able to just sit down and write a hit, and you'll end up writing something that sounds like everything else that's out there, except not quite as good. Whereas I think if you sit down and write nonsense, if you write rubbish, any old thing will do, but you write lots of it, and above all, you finish the songs. The key is finishing a lot of very bad songs. And if you tell yourself in advance they're very bad, that gives you permission to do weird stuff, adventurous stuff, stuff that comes from the back of your subconscious brain. If I'd been trying to write a hit song, I wouldn't have written War Baby. Because it didn't sound like a hit song. It had none of the words rhymed, it didn't scan, it was too long. It was a totally bizarre song. So I think your best chance of reaching your own innate genius is to actually give yourself permission to write bad songs. Because if you wrote 2 songs a week, or even just 1 song a week for the next year, at the end of it, you'd have 50 songs from which to choose, and the chance of one of them actually being pretty good would be quite high.
It's a 1 in 50 shot, isn't it? So that's good.
As a hit rate, at least kind of 2% of what you put out is going to end up great.
Okay.
And it's when you write the kind of most bizarre stuff and go in the opposite direction to the high road to trying to write something radio-friendly that you're most likely to write something that will get on the radio. Okay.
If you were in charge of this country or the world, what would be the first thing you'd change?
The voting system.
So the voting system?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what
it would be nice, wouldn't it, if when you and I go to the polls, who we voted for to look after our interests by running the country actually made some difference. Whereas if you or I live in a place that has a cast-iron majority for one party or the other, our vote doesn't make a blind bit of difference.
No, I live in an area where the sitting MP's got a majority of about 20,000, so it's never going to happen. As you say, and also room 101. What would you put in room 101? What would be the first thing you'd put in room 101 and get your teeth organised again?
I think people who play their music on their phones out loud on buses and trains.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to listen to your music, thank you. I'm listening to my own music on my own headphones.
Yeah, and do you know, that is particularly annoying. I tell you the other thing that really winds me up, especially when during the summertime, you get these people driving through town. They've got their car stereo on about 950, windows open, and they're playing the biggest load of old garbage you've ever heard in your life.
Yeah, well, even if it isn't garbage, other people...
Well, they love it, but, I'm thinking... I say the old man's coming out of me again, you see. Anyway, away from the music business, what do you like to do to relax?
Work. That's my favourite relaxation is work. I do love my work. And it's so nice to have a job that you would do anyway for pleasure. So work can be songwriting, it can be listening to music, it can be blogging. I just love being occupied and getting on with it. So my wife, I'm the despair of my wife because when we go on holiday, I still get the smartphone out and check my emails and things.
Oh yeah, I think. Do you know what? I think you're not the only one. I do that. It's very naughty, isn't it? It gets you into a lot of trouble.
It certainly does.
It gets me into trouble anyhow. So let's talk about the tour and the album. First, the album. On it, you've got some great special guests. You've got Billy Bragg, John Grant, Martin Carthy, Colin Firth, Nadine Shah. You just mentioned Lee Griffiths.
And TV Smith, of course, from the advert.
Of course, yeah. And you've got Sir Ian McKellen as well.
He's being the voice of God.
Voice of God.
Which is great. There's this rapper I know called Swami Varakas, he's actually quite a devout Hindu, and we've got this song about smoking the Bible, and he comes on and does a rap going, like, what are you dreaming of, smoking the Bible, a holy book, you shouldn't be doing this. Great line, you're never going to catch me turning the guitar into a reefer, his rap. And then Ian McKellen booms in as the voice of God, going, no, it's all right with me, you go ahead and smoke the Bible. And you hear Swami in the background go, I don't believe it! So, we've had a lot of fun with those special guests.
Yeah, I mean, how did you... I mean, it's quite a line-up there. You've got Colin Firth, Ian McKellen, and of course, Billy Bragg's been around about the same time as you, I think, about the time. He started in the middle 70s, if I remember correctly.
Well, I think all of them are people that I've known and met and worked with over the years in one role or another. So Jerry Diver, who produced the record, is very keen on the human voice. I mean, most of his work has focused very much on either spoken word or very strong lyrics or interesting voices. So the human voice is his kind of main focus in his production. So he wanted to have a variety of interesting voices on there to work with. So he got me to call up loads of friends and drag them in so use those textures. And that's the way he produces